All right, so on to the next session. I think this is going to be my favorite session of the conference. This is where we're announcing the preliminary data results of all of you who have joined in to be counted in the new RareX platform, the data collection program that the WSS Foundation with our partners across the world have launched on September 1st. So over the last 7 weeks, we've been asking you to enroll your child or yourself into the program and also complete a set of surveys. And this was the next evolution of our patient registry. So if you recall from yesterday, this is one of these critical tools for research to be research ready. And so we're really excited for our partnership with RareX on this, is because they have really put together the best surveys for us to complete across symptoms, across rare diseases, in order to be aligned with drug development and therapeutic treatments. And so as we were thinking about this session, we're going to have our expert from RareX. Her name's Megan O'Boyle. She'll present an overview of RareX as well as the platform. But my favorite part will be the stories that you're going to hear. We picked a few members of our community to share their WSS journey with you related to a symptom in the data set and really highlight those lived experiences that we're seeing in the data. This is meant to be a conversation. They're meant to be brief 5-minute stories, dynamic. There will be maybe a lot of emotion. You should be inspired, and you might need to help applaud them through it. So please engage with them as they're sharing their journey with you. But first up, we'll have Megan O'Boyle come to the stage and give her remarks. And I will let her introduce herself as she does so. And I will note, as when Megan finishes, then we will have Adam Masick. He's the man behind the microphone. He will be the one facilitating the next storytellers to come on stage. And I think I killed enough time so Megan could undress and come on stage. So there we go.
I was not a Girl Scout, not prepared. Thank you guys so much for having me here as a guest. And I have to say, this has been an incredible conference. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. So I'm Megan O'Boyle. I am the patient engagement lead for RareX, but my real job is I'm Shannon's mom. She's 22 and has a neurodevelopmental disorder called Phelan-McDermid syndrome. And it looks like lots of other syndromes where she's nonverbal, she has delays, she has seizures, she has autism, she doesn't sleep, I don't sleep, G issues, and so forth. And although it's very rare, it's not unique in that there are lots of other syndromes that share these symptoms. And what I learned over the years when I was trying to help collect data for her disease is that even though we're rare, we have a lot in common with other diseases, and that makes the collection of data really important to look across diseases. This is gonna be hard because I thought I could see my slides. So RareX is a nonprofit. We were created fairly recently out of frustration from industry researchers and patients that rare disease treatments were not happening fast enough. And so we are here to lessen the burdens on organizations like yours and remove the barriers from industry and researchers getting data. When I say researchers today, I mean researchers at academia, at medical centers, and large pharmaceutical companies and small biotechs. They're all treated the same at RareX. We don't sell the data to them. It's available to them in a de-identified manner at no cost. We don't own the data. Your foundation doesn't own the data. You as participants own it, hence my stylish Own It shirt. And this means you decide how broadly you want to share it or if you want to put some limitations on it. That's what we mean when we say you own the data. So this is your beautiful front door. This is how you will access the enrollment. So what's in it for you? You've answered questions, you have busy lives, you're tired. What's in it for you is that there will be more eyes on this data. This is not data that only the researcher that's collecting it knows about. We will get this out to researchers around the world. I'm happy to answer any questions about that later. I'm going to try and go through these slides really fast because the stories are much more interesting. I know the frustration of going to the doctor and the doctor not knowing what your disease is and you having to explain it and them looking like they're confused. The fact is there's over 10,000 rare diseases and this is going to be your life. You're always going to have to explain it. And if they're looking at old PubMeds, they're going to go by old information. This data will empower you to be better advocates in your doctor's office. It will allow you to get the labs that you know you need because the other family told you on Facebook you need them. It will allow you to get the IEP, or it should help you get the IEP accommodations that you need because it's data. It's not just the word of a crazy mom. Not that I think any of you are crazy, but let's face it, they label us. This is something that you can update anytime you want. As a matter of fact, this is something that you need to and should update. So if you do this survey once, fabulous. We have a snapshot. If you do it at least once a year, then we will see what's a progression of the disease, also called a natural history study, which I've already told Christina, I don't like that word. It's very confusing. So I encourage you, as part of caring for your family member, you go to the doctor, you go to the pharmacy, you pick up meds, you go to the therapies, and you update this data because this is what's going to inform the rest of the world doing research and drug development, what living in your shoes is like. So I would consider this not just a research study. This isn't just about research. This is about understanding it for you, your medical team, and the people around you, and the people doing research. On one side of the slide is how research usually happens. A researcher has to know your disease exists. That's a big thing. And then they have to know that there's data, and then they have to ask for it, and then someone's got to de-identify it and send it to them. On the right side of the screen is our new forward thinking. We are taking in data from any of the 10,000 diseases. In the last 9 months, we've taken in data from 40 diseases, including yours, and most of them happen to be neurodevelopmental disorders. The blue researchers go through one door. They don't have to know your data, but they could stumble across it when they're doing a query on symptoms. So if a researcher is looking at symptoms like low muscle tone, seizures, and repetitive ear infections, if you answered yes to those questions, they're going to stumble across your data, whether they've ever heard of WSS or not. To me, as a rare parent, that is magic. That means researchers from around the world who have never heard of ours and don't know anything about these diseases will now learn it, and they may make this something that they're going to study. They can also recruit for studies and for clinical trials through this. This is amazing. You all have done an amazing job of enrolling. I need you to, if you've enrolled, go back and make sure you answered all of the surveys that are available to you. If you haven't enrolled, it's not too late. I'm at that table out in the corner, and I'm happy to get you started. Christina wanted to get to 100 by yesterday. We were at 96. As of this morning, we are at 98. I know you guys can do it. I believe 200 by Rare Disease Day is the next goal. My last slide is going to be about something we're promoting on Rare Disease Day, and I'll show you in a minute. So even though it's only in English, translation's coming in 2023, look at all those different countries that have participated. If you like to be competitive, then I suggest that you start, encouraging other people from your country to enroll. Lots of people from lots of states. We appreciate that. What do you need? You need a password, and you need to use the correct browsers, and you don't need a lot of time because you don't have to do it in one sitting. But please, please come back and finish the surveys because we only know what you tell us. So you'll go from that beautiful front door, you'll go through the consenting, and then you get to the surveys. If you're a caregiver and you're consenting for your minor child, then you're going to consent for yourself. You're going to decide how you manage your data, and then you're going to add your family member, and then you're going to go through the consent for them. So don't think that it didn't save. There's supposed to be 2 consents. So this first page, after you hit get started, at the bottom, there's 3 options. You can be a patient, a caregiver, or somebody that's lost a loved one. If you are more than one of those things, click each one. This is the time to do that. The second to last page of the informed consent, again, check all that apply. If you are consenting for your child, make sure that, unlike me, who thinks I can outsmart directions and just know what to do, go ahead and read the labels carefully so you know if you're putting in your name or your child's name. That's what your login's going to look like. I highly encourage you to click on privacy policy or terms of use if you have any concerns about where this data is going. I got a great question from a board member yesterday who said, how do I know the insurance companies aren't going to get a hold of this data? Nobody but RareX will see the identified data. This is only going to be shared in a de-identified way. The way we've shared it with your foundation was de-identified. They will not see identifiers. If somebody wants to recruit you, they will have to come to RareX and we will notify you about the study. But if you have any questions, please ask, because you should feel very safe. You're going to be uploading genetic data. You need to feel really good about it. This is the terms of use for the technology plan that we're sitting on. So just to let you know. To select your disease, start to type it in, choose it. If you have another disease, you can hit other and add it there. And to that point, when you're answering questions, it doesn't matter if the symptom has anything to do with WSS. If there's a yes to a question, doesn't matter why you have a condition, just go ahead and don't second guess yourself. Back to the own it. This first page is, do you want to have any researcher doing any kind of research, or would you like to limit it to health, medical, and biomedical research? There's not a wrong answer. The first one, researchers may be doing studies on ethnicity or socioeconomics. The other one is purely medical. You can be more conservative and choose the first, choose the second, and then come back 2 months later and change your mind. And you will be answering this again, if you're a caregiver, for your data, and then you will answer it for your family member. This second page is completely optional. I did not check the boxes. The first box would be, I want researchers to have my data except biopharma. I do want biopharma to have my daughter's data, but it's okay if you don't. This is how you manage your data. The second one says, I only want researchers that have IRB approval, or basically somebody at their institution has reviewed their study and said, stamp of approval, we think this is good science. Totally your prerogative. I'm okay with somebody who is a math major and doesn't have a hypothesis and just goes into the database and is looking around for patterns. So again, these are your options, and you can change them later. If you're a caregiver, once you've entered your information, you're going to add patient. It's in the left-hand corner. These are some of the questions from the general health and development. I call this the head to toe survey. Some surveys are optional. This one is the first one you should do. And every yes on this one will add another survey if we have it for your symptoms. You can always say unsure. So this is what your dashboard looks like. And you'll see that on the side, it says whether you've started it, finished it, how many minutes, how many questions. The first survey, that health and development, very broad. Do you have neurological issues? And it will give you examples. And I will tell you right now, it seems odd, but muscle tone is actually a neurological issue. So that's where low muscle tone question will be asked. At the end, it asks you about genetic testing. If you've had it, I'm guessing everybody here has, to get the diagnosis, we would like you to upload your genetic report. If you don't have it and you don't know how to get to it, ask Christina, we'll help you figure out how to find it. This is imperative that you have your genetic data next to your symptoms. Your report has identifiers on it, so you're going to upload it, and then we're going to take the data from your report and put it in the back door, so that report with identifiers will not be seen by researchers. But to upload it, you just go to the left side of the screen, hit documents, hit upload, there you are. We are not taking other reports at this time, but the system is built so that, for instance, if we got funding for a sleep study curation, we would have you do that. But right now we're just collecting genetic reports. You'll see here in the red, it says level 2. That's the surveys that if I said yes to neuro or yes to pulmonary, I'm going to have another survey. It's not a super deep dive. It's going to ask you some questions. And if you say yes, it says, when did the symptoms start? And when was their diagnosis? This was, when did you think something was wrong? I don't care if the doctor believed you or not. When did you have a gut about it? And then the second one, diagnosis. When did somebody finally put it in the medical record? This is a really important thing because, as you know, there's going to be gaps. At the bottom of every level 2 survey, if you feel like you got cheated and nobody asked you what you wanted to report, hit additional and then type in. Don't type in your child's name or your name because then it's identified. So we don't want you to leave this feeling like you didn't get to report everything you wanted to. There's a quality of life survey. In my instance, I have a nonverbal child. I could not answer some of these questions. So there is an answer that says unable to answer these questions. We got enough feedback from families like you that this was an uncomfortable survey for some people because they didn't know how to answer for their person. This was feedback from other diseases. So we've gone searching and we will be adding another quality of life survey that would be more appropriate for people like me. And that will be available in about a month. We just finished our neurodevelopment working group, which means people from industry and researchers and patients got together and looked at all of the surveys that exist, the assessments, all those things, and said, what are the best ones that are going to yield data for drug development? And they went from 300 surveys down to these 13. These 13 surveys will be launched in the next month or so. So those of you who are in the 96, you enrolled, you answered your surveys, you're going to get an email that says, woohoo, we've got new surveys. I highly encourage you to do these. I know you see Vineland and you're like, oh, but these are really important to have here. Sleep, let's face it, if you're not getting it, you want the whole world to know that. I just want to go back to why you want to do this. This is not just for research. This is for you to have. This is not a funded study that is going to run out of funding in 5 years. This is not tied to an academic center like Stanford or King's College. This is your WSS global data collection for a very long time. This is only as good as what you put in it and as many people as you can get in it. And there is power in numbers. So I encourage you all to encourage each other. Once you've done it, get on Facebook and say, hey, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I could do it over a few sittings. So this is what I was going to promote. As of Rare Disease Day, February 28th, we are doing what's called an Open Science Data Challenge. And for 2 months, our de-identified data will be made available to tens of thousands of researchers who will do basically a hackathon. And they're going to have this data available to just look at for 2 months and see what they can come up with, what patterns and so forth. So in that circle, this is where you are. If you can get your data in there, we'll get the data out there. This is really exciting. We didn't expect to be doing something like this so soon. And we've modeled it after some things that were done in the ASL community. So again, I highly recommend that you enroll. If you have not enrolled, I'll be outside. If you've enrolled, finish your surveys and get others to do so. That's it. Thank you. I'm not allowed to take questions, but Christina, did I come in under my time limit? I told you. I don't want to use up all 5 minutes because the stories are better than me, but go ahead. It was going to, but then we decided that we would get an IRB. And so we have the IRB. And for those of you who don't know, IRB that's the police over studies. It's called different things in different countries, but RareX has to report to, and we are overseen by an institutional review board. We are responsible for the security, the privacy, the the ethics, the legality, everything. We're responsible for the international compliance. We won't translate until we've made sure we've met the data regulations in the country where we're going. Because those of you from Europe, GDPR is different in every country. So we are very careful to make sure that we are abiding by the rules for data collection. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Great. Thank you, guys. Okay. go
I
ahead.
have one question. Is it possible to see who is utilizing the data?
We will not ping you every time someone does,
Yeah.
but we will give the foundation a report probably quarterly saying it was accessed this many times. If someone comes to us, whether they're biotech or whether they're a researcher and says, hey, I want to recruit these 10 ID numbers, can you send out this IRB approved recruitment letter? We would say, absolutely. But first, have you met the foundation that represents these patients? Because we're just a conduit. So we will always bring industry and researchers back to the patient community so that you're aware that it's going on. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes.
Related to the access to the data, is the limitation based on commercial use or, financial benefit use related to the GDPR data limited to the medical use, or can anybody access like a fintech or big data company? Can they access it?
The research portal, which is has been used on huge studies for a long time. It's built on the Broad Institute, and researchers have to go in one door and they have to provide their credentials. And based on their credentials, they open an account because they're going to be doing analysis in the cloud. They will be given access. If a citizen scientist from the foundation wants to go in and look at these de-identified data, they can get limited access, probably to only their disease data, not all of the different diseases. But there's an accountability there. So if you have a specific concern, I can, answer that out there too. Great. Well, I think you all should give yourselves a round of applause because your first effort in the first 2 months have been great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Megan. And I just want to put a shameless plug. If you have any additional questions and you haven't yet enrolled, Megan's the expert and she'll be here all day at the exhibit table. So please go see her. Next up.
It's my pleasure to now welcome Jillian Algrim, Emma's mom, persistent investigator, comedic relief guide.
Hi, this is not intimidating at all. So I am Emma's mom. My name is Jillian Algrim. This is my why. Emma is incredible, like many of your kids, I'm sure. She's fierce, she's independent, determined, clever, funny, and an incredible free spirit. I'm actually really glad I'm her mom. Let's see. Our journey with WSS began, honestly, when I was pregnant. At 16 weeks, we had a AFP, which is that triple screen that most people have. And it came back that it was positive for Down syndrome. And so we went ahead and did the amniocentesis and everything came back normal. But I just had this inkling that something else was there. Like this did not make sense for my age and for the health of our baby. Something just wasn't right. So as soon as she was born, she had instant health issues in the NICU. That looked like vomiting. We had some seizure stuff that ended up being ruled out, but she was an incredibly happy baby, but she became frustrated really easily. And looking back, this was likely my first hint that we were going to have some behavioral stuff. And that there was a lot more going on. We kept getting the constant runaround from doctors, all while trying to explain the difficult nature of her behaviors. And we were experiencing trauma because of that. Doctors kept telling me this is normal behavior. Well, a normal 2-year-old doesn't bang her head for 2 hours. So that was really frustrating for me. And I'm actually a nurse as well. So to keep continuing to be shut down by my own profession was really, really hard. We tried all sorts of mental health care providers and that failed when they just told us that we needed to spend more time with her, which was really, really frustrating. She, up until kindergarten, we still weren't quite keeping up. She was doing well academically, and in kindergarten, things really took some time. Really took a turn, and her behaviors and outbursts became a problem, a really big problem. And it was only at home. So nobody else was seeing any of this. And in first and second grade, the academic rigor, her meltdown started after school. She would keep it together at school and we just couldn't figure out what was going on. So at 9 years old and heading into third grade, this is about a picture of when, we had a full screening EEG because of some seizure activity. And we got our WSS diagnosis. And we are so grateful for this community. It has been such a lifeline to us. When we got her diagnosis is kind of when I got the full picture of what was going on. So anxiety, sensory differences, meltdown, impulsivity, and difficulty with nonverbal communication. As you can see from my pictures, Emma makes my life very interesting and fun. We have meltdowns and very magical days at Epcot where she sticks her tongue out. Sister beatdowns right before church on our porch. So one of the main symptoms is anxiety, and our kids do have serotonin receptor repression. I can get everybody the document that kind of states this, but it is in the Neuropsychopharmacology of December 2016 issue. So if anybody wanted to look that up, but there's just been this underlying tenseness that Emma has. We were actually told last year by the main neuro psychiatrist that therapy was probably not going to work. Emma does not participate in talk therapy, and it just wasn't a good fit. So we have stopped with therapy and we've increased medication. And that's kind of where we are with anxiety. I don't have a whole lot with anxiety. It's really kind of tough to tease out with everything else that's going on. Her sensory differences, pain tolerance, safety has always been kind of an issue due to the pain tolerance problem. She would fall and hurt herself and not stop. I see lots of nodding heads. Emma has also broken bones, and we have not found out till 9 to 14 days later. So that has also been something that we need to be aware of. It seems like she's been driven by a motor, and that's how this came across when she was really little. And I know some kids aren't sensory seekers. I have both. I have a sensory seeker and a sensory avoider. So she just needed a lot. It was just really, really involved care when she was young. And it feels like even though that has shifted from the physicality, the emotional part of my care for her is so much more than with my typical child. For her sensory differences, we did Wilbarger therapy, OT, and we have tried to keep her in physical sports, very active physical sports. We've done jujitsu, climbing, anything just to keep her going. The meltdowns. This is the one that we've really had a hard time with. Emma has meltdowns that look like tantrums, but we have, I won't get into too much detail. I've gotten into a lot online, but there's been police involvement. Her age has helped, but we have impulsivity. And I mentioned yesterday, we have locked cabinets at home because we have problems with eating whole jars of Nutella while everybody's asleep. When she was little, this looked like running into the street, not understanding that what she wanted to do just wasn't going to work all the time. Now this impulsivity looks like overeating. And saying inappropriate things sometimes. now that she's 13. Um, and then the difficulty with nonverbal communication, this is the one that was really difficult for me to kind of figure out, was that she, like, body language is so hard for her. If somebody's trying to walk away from a conversation, she's not quite sure. And the facial expressions are really hard for her. And with that, voice cues or vocal cues are really difficult as well. So this whole neurodevelopmental part of it is so important to understand because of her social and for her life and for the quality of her life. I want to make sure that we have this. We have the research on this. So as you can see, again, lots of nodding heads, and you guys all filled this out. Anxiety, autism, all of these are really common. The biggest thing that I think that I could have benefited from was taking something like this into the doctors, because nobody would do an ADOS on Emma, which is the autism screening. We ended up getting an autism diagnosis 1 month shy of her 12th birthday. I really, really wish that I could have brought something like this in to force them to do that a lot sooner. Because I had to basically tell them that we weren't releasing her from a hospital program until they did that. So I feel like if we have data to show doctors, because they're very data driven, we're going to get a lot more results with our testing. And my wish, I really just want there to be more acceptance and empathy and understanding for what our kids deal with. It's hard. It's hard to be them. I can't imagine being anxious and just having some of the things that she deals with every day and keeping it together like they do. Like, she does such a great job. I want this among providers and society. That's going to take a while, but I think we can get there. I feel like we need some neurodiverse affirming providers, trauma-informed providers, because our kids deal with a lot of trauma, regardless of if anybody says it's true or not. The medical trauma, the trauma of not being included, the trauma of being lonely, they deal with that. And that's something we need to be aware of. I hope that eventually WS is more understood and recognized for clarity on treatment plans. That would be really nice. So we're not all out here just the blind leading the blind, I guess. And that more universities offer studies for people with intellectual disabilities and autism, and that police and mental health emergency response training and awareness becomes something that is just much more readily available to even smaller police forces, because that has been an interesting thing I didn't know we were going to have to deal with. So that is my why. And Adam Masick, where are you?
Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you.
I'm excited to allow Ashley McQuinn to come share her story. This is Wyatt and Georgia's mom, chaos organizer, and an advocate.
Hi. So for those that do not know me, I'm sorry. My name is Ashley and I am Wyatt and Georgia's mom. And they both have WSS. So it's been a long 10 years. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it's a lot. So I'm grateful to all of you guys to be there for me, Facebook wise and not. But yeah, so Wyatt is 10, Georgia is 6.5. Madam. So this is my why. So I have 4 kids. 2, Wyatt, who is 10, has WSS. Hunter, 8, he does not. Georgia does. Maddox does not. So it kind of, hit the mark on there. But these are my whys. So our WSS journey started with Wyatt probably when he was about 4.5. When he started talking, it was a lot of grunting and pointing and not making words. And when, as an infant, he would babble, but if you asked him what something was, he couldn't give you the word. It was just a lot of grunting and pointing. So at 3.5, our pediatrician at the time sent us to Kennedy Krieger and said, hey, we need to look into this because we had been doing birth to 3 and all the therapies and nothing was working. Then Georgia got diagnosed also through Kennedy Krieger because she, as an infant, would eat constantly but wouldn't gain any weight. Even now, she still eats like a 16-year-old boy and is only 40 pounds. So she's itty bitty. When we were in West Virginia, we finally met Dr. Fala, who did put this presentation together for the last conference before COVID shut everything down. I have experience on the Caesar part of it with Georgia. She has absentee seizures, which basically means she will go into these staring spells and something happens at night where her brain just overstimulates. The sad part of it is we don't know it has happened until we wake up the following morning and she looks like this. We've done multiple EEGs for her. They've all come back normal, which is, yeah. So that we always get, we didn't pick up any seizure activity, but because she is displaying symptoms, we're gonna say her epilepsy. So this is helpful also, because a lot of the time when I do take them to the doctors, it's, well, do you know any other kids with WSS that have these symptoms? And it's yes, but I can't give you percentages. But now that we can do this, I can say, here it is. Read it, take it, do something with it, please. Another thing is muscles. The picture on the left is Wyatt's hands and Georgia's are on top of her poppets. We're still looking for a diagnosis as to why Wyatt's hands are so swollen all the time. We have seen a rheumatology. We were kind of told, this isn't in my field. I usually see the knuckles that are swollen and not so much the soft tissue around it. So another doctor, no answers, more tests, which I'm sure we've all been there. We do have a lot of low muscle tone. So we have been doing physical therapy for years. And, you know, and again, it's a lot of new therapists, new diagnosis. Well, I don't know what WSS is. Do other kids with it have low muscle tone? And then we're yes, and then it's okay, well, I'll read about it later type of thing. My wish is hopefully that we do collect enough data that when I do walk into a doctor's office, I haven't heard of WSS before. What is it? Can you explain it? Because then it's the deep breath and it's, here we go again. So, and my wish is that genetic testing would be a basic screening that's done if there's a family history of it. Because like I said, you know, we've been through all the behaviors with Wyatt. We didn't get an autism diagnosis with him until a month before his 10th birthday. And so I'm hoping that once this data is out there, more doctors will have access to it and we can get answers sooner rather than later and not have to go, let me go ask the community. And, you know, so that's where we're at with that. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. All right, I'm excited to announce Lisa Misko. This is Riker's mom, healthcare whisperer, relentless educator.
Good morning, everyone. As he said, I'm Lisa Misko. I have Riker and he is 6 now and he's in the 1st grade. We live in Greendale, Wisconsin. Our description sums us up both very well. I work in healthcare and have learned to navigate the system quite well. Not afraid to get 2nd, 3rd, 4th opinions from doctors. Not afraid to say no or ask questions. We've hand selected an amazing team to support us all. And we never miss an opportunity to educate others or advocate for Riker. I always say I'm not the same person I was before I had Riker. And I'm so blessed I'm not. I see the world a little differently now, a world I so desperately want to fix for my son. My why, of course, is my beautiful family. Those are my 3 kids. Was Riker when he was little with his WSS hat right after he got diagnosed. And I do this for the trauma we went through and for all those years not knowing if Riker was going to be okay. For the struggle to find someone who believed us. I do this for all the parents and caregivers that did not or do not have supportive medical teams or providers because of the lack of knowledge on WSS. And for the hope that with more knowledge, we can lessen that trauma for our kids and families. Our journey with WSS was scary, but at the same time, oh so amazing. Riker was and still is the most laid back, smiley, and lovable boy. He is just pure joy. When I was looking back at pictures, trying to find them, it was really hard to find one where he wasn't smiling, even when he was in the hospital. Riker was small right from birth, and he was full term. And I just remember looking at him, and when I saw him, I was like, he was just so tiny. I just didn't expect that. And his issue started right away. I think it is like 3rd hospitalization within like 3 months. His GI doctor discovered he was aspirating. And that combined with many of the other concerns, the doctor started running many tests, finding horseshoe kidneys, bicuspid aortic valve, tapering in his corpus callosum, sacral dimple, low muscle tone. I was like, what else are we gonna find? And that combined with all those concerns, they started, running more tests, and that led us to genetics, which was not an easy journey, unfortunately. Quite a few appointments we went, and they determined that he looked fine. He was actually one of the happiest and cutest babies they'd ever seen. Couldn't get over his adorable puffy hands and feet and his beautiful eyelashes, but he was normal, yeah. And he, none of the pictures matched anything in their database. So that led for about a year-long battle that we finally won to get genetics. And lo and behold, he had a rare genetic condition called Wiedemann-Steiner syndrome. They had never seen anybody with this, had no information, handed us like a Wikipedia about it, and said goodbye. And there's probably a Facebook group you can go on. So I'm going to go on to some of the issues we had. He just could not eat properly. He could not gain weight, no matter how much they fed him. He could not grow in height. He constantly threw up, and constantly, every time he lay down, no matter how long he ate. He could not have a proper bowel movement. After over 10 hospitalizations, his first year and a half of life, the words failure to thrive just became our normal. The answers always seemed to be that I was doing something wrong and I needed to feed him more. So at 9 months, Riker received his G-tube, which was hard for me, but it was such a blessing. And at around 18 months old, I started a blended diet through his G-tube, and his vomiting stopped. It was definitely a life changer. He did gain some weight after that, but it was never enough. It was exhausting. Every doctor appointment I dreaded, every time he was weighed, every time he was measured. So that kind of just brought me, I want to talk a little bit about the rare slide. You can see almost everybody had constipation and GI issues. It wasn't a surprise to me, the amount of people that had answered that. And just imagine that if our doctors could see this information right away and we didn't have to struggle with that for so long without getting the tests and medications and therapies to help us through it. It could greatly improve the lives of not only our kids, but also us of having to go through this. I'm going to focus a little bit more on growth issues. If you see the top left, he was in 3, I think it was 3, and then right to that 4, bottom left 5 kindergarten, and then 6. He's 6.5 now, and you can focus on where the door handle is. So I always why I do it there. At around 3, we started seeing endocrinologists because just feeding him more was not an answer and not an option anymore. They ran quite a few tests, not turning up much at all. We constantly fought with wondering if we should put him through any more of these tests that were difficult and traumatic, as he had been through so much already. We were so thankful to have a wonderful endocrinologist that we truly thought growth hormones could improve his life, not just for height, but for muscle tone and for bowels, which was our number one issue at that time. After a 2-year battle with insurance, and I'm going to say battle because it was, we had a lengthy appeal and he started growth hormones. So between 5 and 6, he started them, and he was not only growing in height, his muscles became stronger. It was just incredible. Even his school team would tell me, "What's changed? What is going on with Riker? He was doing this today." And we were just so grateful. So here is the rare slide. 100% of people had said short stature if I could have taken this to the doctor. And I only 13 or 27 had said that, but could you imagine if we had more people that had that and the numbers grew? Yeah. And to add, if the insurance could see that 100% of kids have short stature, and could make this growth hormones, if that is an option that parents wanted to go through, not that they have to, would be an acceptable thing for insurance to give us to try. That would be incredible. And I can go on about the appeal and every other process after if anybody has questions. And yeah, a little bit more about the slides and growth hormones and deficiency. So my wish is just simple. I didn't write too much. It's of all of you guys, that our children are happy, they're healthy, and can just live to their full and unique potential. And most importantly, for there to be more research and available medical knowledge for our providers to access and to help us navigate our journey. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lisa. It's my pleasure to now announce Stacy Arnell, the adorable mom of Briar Rose, determination personified, mayor of Crazy Town.
That's right. So my wife, we have 8 kids and we live a life full of chaos. Briar Rose is daughter number 6, and she has 2 older brothers as well. And I remember a few years ago, we were kind of in the midst of it, a lot going on all the time. And Briar Rose was sick as usual. And I had taken her to the local hospital that morning to be suctioned, and got back and she still didn't look good. And daughter number 2 was having her first date and her first dance. And I was supposed to be taking pictures for her and driving them around. And daughter number 3 was waiting for a ride with her friends to go somewhere. And daughter number 4 and 5 were off with friends somewhere. And I have no idea where the other kids were, who knows. But so I sent my husband off to hospital number 2 of the day, so he could get her suctioned again because she was not doing well. And a few hours later, she was declining so fast at the hospital that they discharged Life Flight to come pick her up and take her to the local children's hospital. Because in what most people would be just a cold, rhinovirus. There's something pretty traumatizing about driving to the hospital, wondering if your daughter's flying overhead in Life Flight, or hearing the helicopter land with your daughter on board, knowing how sick she really is. This is our family, our crazy town right there. So the winter before the Life Flight, we had 5 kids in 3 different dance productions. And at the same time, Briar Rose was spiking super high fevers every 2 to 3 weeks. And one night, as we were shuttling and volunteering during these performances, my husband was at the ER with Briar Rose. And another night I was volunteering, and he brought Briar Rose up to me so he could run in and try and watch the kids dance. And I remember holding her out there, and she's burning hot with fever and she's vomiting repeatedly, and we're trying to clean her up and just manage the chaos of it all. because this was just our life. At 6 months old, Briar Rose started fevers every 2 weeks. And they couldn't find a reason why, but her inflammatory markers were sky high. And so she was admitted to the hospital for the first time. And eventually the fevers came back 2 weeks, and they came back 2 weeks. And so she was diagnosed with autoinflammatory disease or periodic fever syndrome. And it was actually because of the periodic fever syndrome that we were able to do genetic testing and came back with a Wiedemann-Steiner diagnosis, which was completely shocking to us. Along with the fevers came repeated respiratory distress, the common cold, rhinovirus, repeatedly wiping her out time and time again. Parainfluenza, RSV, influenza, all these things that she would get, and she would recover for a couple of weeks, and then she would get something else again. And then the fevers as well. And sometimes there was no reason for the fevers. And so why was this happening? Why is Briar Rose and some of our kids' immune system subjected to frequent and severe illness? We don't really know, do we? There's no research, no information for doctors, no collaboration on the immune system. What makes the immune system overreact in these kids and some of them? We know for Briar Rose that she has inflammatory issues, which is something that we've seen in quite a handful of kids with Wiedemann-Steiner syndrome, but you won't find that data anywhere. And so for Briar Rose, the inflammatory issues means that her innate immune system is overreacting, and it's kind of fighting and going too much, acting too much and causing inflammation in her body. And so for a while, we were doing blood draws every time she would get a fever or every time she would get sick. And she would have to go through these blood draws. And then we would also do a viral panel. So think of a no COVID nasal swab, deep ones. And so every time we would go through this process, and we don't do the blood draws anymore, but we still do a viral swab every time she has a fever, every time she's sick. Because for Briar Rose, different viruses are treated different ways, and different medications work a little bit differently. And she's severe enough that we have to find out what it is, treat her as quickly as possible so it doesn't get into her lungs. So watching your child struggle to breathe, their throat, ribs, sternum sucking in with every breath just to get air. It's something too many of us have gone through and seen. Being at the hospital, visits with pulmonology, sleep medicine, many specialists, nebulizers, monitors, wires and tubes. This is the landscape of Briar Rose's childhood. And so we don't have a lot reporting yet, but we know that some of these kids, when they're younger, they just get sick more frequently. Some of them deal with asthma, abnormal breathing patterns. We know the risk for aspiration in these kids is high, and that contributes to lung issues and lung disease. But luckily, we were able to try a new treatment. Someone somewhere donated plasma. Actually, 3,000 someone somewhere donated plasma. And from that plasma, they pull immune globulins, they purify them, produce a medicine made of 90% donated immunity or antibodies to disease and infection. And so these 3,000 people that donated plasma make one dose. As I wrote the words for today, we were at the hospital getting Briar Rose's infusion. We come once a month for 8 hours or so to get immune therapy. Briar Rose is the first WSS patient to get immune therapy, and we hope that other kids will be able to benefit from that. Briar Rose's blood work doesn't really show immune deficiency, and yet her rheumatologist, head of immunology, and the insurance approved her for this therapy in just 3 weeks. 50% reporting recurrent infections, 42% immune deficiency. We know these kiddos also have recurrent ear infections, probably from the small ear canals. And many have the aspiration risk and other things, but I know our youngest diagnosed patient I've watched their journey, and this poor little baby keeps being in the hospital for rhinovirus and other viruses. And I keep thinking, oh, maybe she can get help. Maybe there'll be something for her or the other WSS kids that go through these things. And my wish, what if things were different? If we could better understand the WS immune system, if doctors had a better cohort of information and literature, research, and treatment options. How many of you have been to the doctor or hospital appointments and you say Wiedemann-Steiner syndrome and they just look up at you and you're like, would you like me to spell that for you? Or okay, they're okay there. Or how many of you have come into the room and they proceed to tell you about Wiedemann-Steiner syndrome, or maybe they Google it right in front of you, and you can tell they're reading it straight from Google, and you're like, would you like me to give you some more information on that? Or my favorite was when they say, usually we treat Wiedemann-Steiner patients and we do this. And you kind of give them a look and you stare them down trying to decide whether to call their bluff, because you absolutely 100% know that they have never, ever seen a Wiedemann-Steiner patient before. And then there's the doctors that are willing to learn with you, fight for your child. And we're lucky to have many children like that. But what if these treatments are available to more Wiedemann-Steiner patients? If doctors had data collected and it was easier for them to see Briar Rose's immune success, what difference can we as a group make in the quality of lives of others? If more kids could go to school instead of get sick? What if less kids ended up in the hospital due to croup and breathing difficulties? What if one less parent came to the group in despair seeking answers for unexplained fevers because we understood the correlation? What if we can make a difference right now for our entire community? And that's what the RareX program is providing. And we appreciate your support and enrolling in that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stacy. You have a beautiful family. I'm very excited to announce our next speaker, Ned Barnes, along with one of our WSS celebrities, Allison Barnes. We have a rare adult and dad, passionate ambassadors and cheerleaders of success.
Well, I'm very thankful to have my Y up here with us, Allison. You know, Allison Corey Barnes is a thriving adult woman with WSS, and we're very thankful for that. She has very many things in life that she does now that we at one point didn't know if she would ever do. But you know, our journey has been an interesting one. She comes from a really big family, sort of like the Arnett family, same thing. We have 8 kids. So she's child number 3 of 8. She has 4 brothers. She has 3 sisters. She has numerous nieces and nephews, aunts and uncles. So she's bothered, and sometimes in her mind, by some of the family, but always is a part of the family. Our family would not be our family without Allison. I mean, she brings a quality that I believe other families miss, and I feel sorry for them. I mean, but we have a great mix with our kids, and holidays are especially fun. So, but you know, it wasn't always this way. When she was born, and that was in 1987, there was no Wiedemann-Steiner diagnosis available. They did not have it identified yet. So as a consequence, when my wife, who's a nurse, would take her to pediatricians or medical professionals, they had no idea that the different and unusual syndromes or symptoms that she had were actually connected and actually would mean something someday. So when she had problems thriving, like at the end of her first year, weighing only 13 pounds, because every time we would feed her a bottle, it was almost like okay, just tap her real softly. Maybe she won't. There's a burp. Oh, just all over the carpet. Our carpet was ruined after a year, but she would actually look at you and smile. I mean, I relate to the smiley type of, she was small and she smiled all the time, even though she was failing to thrive at the time. So we never had any of that support. There was no WSS Foundation to inform us, yes, this is sort of how it goes. there was no thought in the medical world about feeding tubes and about, trying to get these little ones to thrive at those young ages to get beyond that. They just thought, well, she's got a loose sphincter up there and if you feed her just the right Nutramigen and she'll be okay, just do your best. That's all we had back then. And so it wasn't always a bowl of fun, but thankfully, because of God's grace and because of a mother who has just dedicated her life for a couple of years just to saving this life, she's thriving this day. And today she's got a life full of activities. She's got a life full of fun and full of challenges. And it's amazing what she does. It's a rich and full quality of life. She does therapeutic horseback riding. You're going to have to just sort of piece together some of these. Over here in the corner, she's got some like ribbons on and stuff like that. Each year when they have their therapeutic horse riding competition, she comes home with ribbons and sometimes trophies. So she really enjoys doing that. And she's really good at that too. She does a day hab twice a week. She loves it. And she has a day tab twice a week where she goes in the community with some friends with other challenges in life, and they enjoy things and they have activities. She used to actually work in a workshop, but because of allergies and sensitivities to different things in the environment, she can't do that anymore. But you know what? She's somebody who's more minded to make lemonade out of lemons in life. And so she does that every time. Sort of like when she was a baby and really wasn't talking much, she smiled all the time. Now she just looks at life in a positive way, even when she's got a lot of negatives facing back at her. So she loves participating in the annual Night to Shine, the Tim Tebow thing. If you look on her Facebook page, you're going to probably find some pictures each year with that. She goes camping with us, biking with us, swimming with us, family activities and holidays. I mean, she's right there with all of us. And we're just so thankful that she's part of that. But she also has some challenges in life. I mean, when we go biking, as up there, she'll be the one that stops and is, her younger brother says, come on, but we all wait, and she catches up, but the good thing is she keeps going. She has a mind to keep going and not to stop. Also with the therapeutic horseback riding, she'll be sore a lot of times, but she keeps going back because she knows if she doesn't want to slow down in life so much that she loses ability in things. And she'll have days where she's going through allergies that just keep her down, and some of the reactions are painful for 1 or 2 or 3 days. And so it's not a life that's free of challenge. She still has challenges because of the WSS as an adult, but she keeps going with them, and she's thankful for keeping going. Another thing she loves to do is to keep in touch with her family. She considers you family. Yes, we're a foundation, but for Allison, this is a family. She's sort of a self-avowed ambassador to the WSS community, and she will more often than not be like she is here on talking to somebody around the world, around the country. I mean, for my wife and I, it's interesting. She's the one child of our 8 that we sort of stand in her shadow. and usually it's like, yeah, I'm Allison's dad, or she's like, yeah, I'm Allison's mom. It's sort of fun to be part of a rock star's life. I mean, and she just loves her family because of connections like that. She'll tell us, sometimes she'll be really looking down. It's like, what's the matter? Well, so-and-so in England or wherever is having this problem. I mean, she bears the burdens with them and loves them, and they all feel that too. And so they'll call her and put their burdens on her and have her bear them for her. So she has a rich life in that sense too. But what we have been given, and Megan explained it so much in detail of what it really means to the research community, but I look at it as a WSS parent as a tool that we've been given, sort of like a foundational clinical tool that is cathartic. You look up there, like I look at, and it's a little hard to see from here, but like the brain and the nervous system, and we see issues like that. Sometimes, even as an adult, she'll stand when she's, and do this kind of thing. We're used to it as a family. Other people look at it like, what's wrong with you? We look back at them like, what's wrong with you? You don't have a kid like this? Come on. But we understand where it's coming from. And it's cathartic that we have a whole community that's been identified like this clinically as having that. Also with the digestive things. I mean, people do not understand what aromatherapy is unless they have a WSS kid, right? Can we talk about that? But we're all part of that, and it's identified there, and it's cathartic to see that and to know that we're not alone. And that's the value, I think, for all of us as parents, yes, there's a great value out there that helps with how do we get research that will help our community eventually in a much more medical way. But as parents, there's an emotional attachment that this thing helps to bond and to foster even deeper. So sleep is another issue. I mean, she wears a CPAP religiously. She loves it and she sleeps really good with it. And when she was a young child, I heard somebody talk about the head bonking. She was doing the same thing. I mean, so all the sleep issues are connected. It's not just a random symptom that doesn't go somewhere. But you know, another nice facet about this is the quality of life, because there are issues of quality of life that are really common in this room, in this family, as Allie would say. And the common life, struggles sometimes with quality of life might be pain interference. She has that, where we'll be having fun doing something and all of a sudden, you know, and she starts walking different, her knees hurting her. And sometimes it's just, you know, she can't keep going because of a breathing problem or digestive. So she deals with the pain, the physical function, you know, sometimes she just doesn't have the stamina that her brothers and sisters have. And sometimes she will even say she's sort of in an older body at a younger age. And that's something that we also have seen identified up here. So interpersonal relationships is really key to her. She has a need to be needed. And thankfully with this family here, she finds that. And hopefully your children can find that as well, because it's true and it's real. So I guess the bottom line is my wish is for this thriving adult woman with WSS to continue sharing her love worldwide. And it is worldwide now in this foundation with so many who need encouragement. She's so good at that. And she loves that. To her, that's her job description. That's one of her purposes for being on this planet. She loves it. So anybody who wants to see Allison afterwards, she would love to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ned and Allison.
Oh, she wants to give everybody a hug too.
And Allison, real quick, I just want to say to Allison, you know, thank you for everything that you do for the foundation. A lot of our little kiddos look up to you. And so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And our last speaker for this session is Gauravi Deshpande. She is the mom to Nisha, who is absolutely adorable as well. Cell biologist, science writer.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Gauravi, Nisha's mom, and Krish's wife. He's standing back there. So this is my wife, Nisha. She is 2.5 years old. And our journey started when I was 30 weeks pregnant. I went for an ultrasound and they told me, your baby has a renal reflux. And what that means is that her urine used to backflow even when she was in my tummy. And it was a severe grade. And they determined right then, even before her birth, that she's going to have a surgery when she is good enough to tolerate all that procedure. So, you know, even before she was born, we did a couple of screening, genetic testing, and nothing came out. And we were like, okay, this is good. Maybe it will get resolved. And so when we kept looking for answers, something related to kidney, like, you know, they tested multiple times, and she had feeding issues right from the birth. It was very stressful, like just sitting there 24 hours, like every hour I would try to feed her and she would spit out. She would cry for no reason. She wouldn't sleep that much. So we were like, well, what's happening? And the other thing in the back of our mind was like, you know, she has some kidney issues and she was on antibiotics right from her birth. So we used to research, okay, are there any side effects of the antibiotics? And we kept thinking it's related to that. Like, you know, it's something that, so we kept looking for answers, but somewhere else. And when we took her, she had multiple appointments, mostly for ultrasound, nephrologist, urology, like anything of that specialty, multiple testing done. And she's a COVID baby. And that became her like only place where she's being taken out. Like, you know, she was like, oh, this nurse is a part of like, you know, what I see every month or every 15 days. And so when we took her for her 6-month appointment, and our pediatrician, she was really good. She was like, her tone is off. She has a slight developmental delay. And I'm like, what are you talking? Maybe it's related to antibiotics. It has nothing to do with my child. She's going to be okay. And she was like, no, but let's start therapies. So we got into PT, OT, we got into feeding clinic, which was extremely stressful. I mean, as most of the moms here know, like, I would go to the appointment, they're like, okay, like, let's try more calories, let's try this and that. And I'm like, maybe she's just petite, maybe it's antibiotic. It just kept compounding, like, she was like given the diagnosis of hypotonia at 8 months. And then she had feeding difficulties that was right from before. And then she had silent reflux. So taking that medication slightly helped. So when we got the diagnosis for hypotonia, our geneticist started looking for, specific genes involved in hypotonia. And that's when she suggested for exome sequencing. We did for that. And I still remember that phone call. That was just a day before she turned 1. And they told us, we have a diagnosis. It's called WSS. And since you are a researcher, by the way, I'm going to send you 5 different papers, read through it, and then you'll get an idea about which specialty you should look up for. So I'm like, okay. So and it was just a day before. So I was like, couldn't you wait for like 2 days? Like, why are you making this call today? But nonetheless, okay. So we went ahead and like we shortlisted a couple of specialties. We went for appointments. And at that time, when we got this diagnosis, we are like, oh my God, we don't know anything about it. It's new. We reached out to the foundation, and Christina was our point person at that time. And like, we are really lucky to have this support. It means a lot. You guys are wonderful. And so it helps, like, knowing that we are not alone in this journey. So we have some other issues as well, poor eye vision. And these are not the things that, we had a hint of. We kept checking on some of these specialties, and like poor eye vision was a surprise to us because we have never, like, seen her stumble or not having any issues with depth perception. So moving ahead, now where we are, connecting it to the research. I know, like, as everyone emphasized here, Megan is a good advocate, that you can take these notes to the doctors and say, okay, this is what needs to be done. The numbers speak for itself. Now, I want to emphasize also on the research side, and we all know, I mean, we want to know what's happening. And this data just reflects the openness of our community to get involved in research, knowing more answers, what needs to be done, and even agreeing to giving some kind of samples. Many a times, me and my husband, Krish, we reach out to a few researchers. Oh, do you know about this? I see that you are researching on this. Like, we want to know more. Can you help us out? And, we are working with the foundation, as Christina mentioned yesterday, like, one of the plan is to go for developing cell lines or some kind of like connecting with the mouse model and so on. So it's critical, and we want to have those numbers. We want to get together for, further research. We want to know why, how can we make it better? And I'm sure, like, every mom also thinks at the back of my mind, whatever I support, I don't want the next mom to, like, come out with that. We want to be helpful to each other. And so my wish is that, I want a good support. I want a good caregiver support for my daughter. She needs to get all the good healthcare access. And, we don't have to, when we go to the doctor, I don't want to be second guessed. Like, okay, what's this? let's start all over again. No. So that's what my wish is. And I know she's a very happy baby. Like, she goes through like most of our child, she goes through a lot, but everybody sees as, oh, she's a cute, smiley baby. She has lots of hair. She has long eyelashes. She's the one. Yeah. So that's my wish.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. And one last round of applause for all of our speakers today. So there is a QR code up here. This gives you the full report for the Rare X. So it's also on the website. So if you can't get it here, it's on the website. So please check it out. As we said once or twice before, we have 96 that have participated, 98, I believe, as of this morning. It is really imperative that we increase that number, not just for our community now, but think about the kids in the future. The more information we can give them, the better off their lives are going to be. Okay. So please access that, check it out. If you have any questions, I know Megan's out there as well too. We're going to take a quick break. 10:35 is when we're going to be back. The reason why is we have all of our friends from the UK that are going to join us and they're ready to rock and roll. So let's try to make this a few minutes and we'll get going.